The Federal Trade Commission has voted to fine Facebook nearly $5 billion for mishandling users' personal information. The FTC approved the penalty in a 3-2 vote along party lines. 2 Democrats voted against the settlement. The deal still needs final approval from the Department of Justice, but if approved, it would be the biggest civil penalty ever imposed by the federal government against a technology company. Ian Schur joins me now from San Francisco. He is the editor-at-large for CNET News. Ian, thanks so much for joining us. Democratic Senators Richard Blumenthal, Ron Wyden, and Mark Warner all put out similar statements criticizing the FTC for apparently failing to impose a larger penalty on Facebook, despite the fact that this is the largest, in history. By your estimation, what would be an appropriate fine?
That's a really good question. I think part of the problem is that people want to have this cathartic hand slap that really teaches Silicon Valley a lesson of some sort. You have to think that Facebook's profit last year was $22 billion. So in a lot of ways, this is just couch change. And I think part of the concern a lot of people have is that they want Facebook to feel some pain for all of the trouble that they've caused. And even though this is just coming out of the Cambridge Analytica privacy scandal, it's something that people want to kind of make into a broader kind of rebuke of Facebook. Right.
And meanwhile, on the news, Facebook stock goes up. So you could argue that, Zuckerberg actually made $1 billion on this news. But, Consumer Reports' Justin Brookman, who used to work at the FTC, tweeted, "To be fair, the FTC has limited authority under our weak laws to demand injunctive relief. People are going to be bagging on the FTC for the settlement, but they should be bagging on Congress." So, Ian, are there any serious pieces of legislation on Capitol Hill aimed at possibly regulating Facebook?
There's a lot of ideas coming out of Capitol Hill, that's for sure. You've got Senator Mark Warner coming up with a few. You've got Senator Wyden coming up with a couple of ideas. You've even got some coming out of the House. But the problem is that, as we've seen with a number of these hearings that have happened, you remember last year with Mark Zuckerberg, the hearings where one senator even asked how Facebook makes money. It was kind of a forehead slap moment. That Congress really doesn't understand how technology works. So the hope of even regulating it is really out the window until this body gets their homework done and learns how all this stuff works. And I think that's part of the problem. We can have a ton of ideas coming out of a few senators and congressmen, but it doesn't mean anything if they can't vote on it.
Right. All right. Now, domestically, we know Facebook is dealing with a host of issues. What are some of the obstacles the company is dealing with internally right now?
Well, internally they've got a lot of things going on. You've got the company is still trying to kind of figure out how to compete with a bunch of different people. It's got Instagram growing. You've got the number of people using Facebook is growing, but the amount of time they're spending, according to some studies, is actually dropping. And then you've also got pressure internationally as well, right? A lot of Facebook's growth right now is coming from international markets, but there's this increasing pressure on the company from legislatures around the world that are willing to punish it in ways that the United States really hasn't. And I think that's going to be interesting to watch as well.
All right, Ian Schur from CNET, we thank you so much for your insight.
Thanks for having me.